Have you ever found yourself getting angry and then regretting it? Maybe you were sitting in your car, someone cut you off in traffic, and boom, that anger flared up like a fire. You yelled, you reacted, and just a few minutes later, you found yourself wondering, why did I lose my temper over a stranger? What is it in us that makes it so easy to be triggered? Or maybe there was a time when a single comment left you feeling hurt? A look, a careless remark, and suddenly, your whole day felt heavy. Your sense of pride got bruised. Even someone's silence felt personal. But if you really look deeper, you might realize it's our attachment to ego, to reputation, to being respected, that's what actually causes the pain. And have you ever wondered why some people seem so calm, no matter what happens? They get misunderstood, ignored, even insulted, but they don't blow up. They don't shut down. They respond, not from emotion, but from awareness. It's not that they don't feel. It's that they've trained themselves not to be ruled by what they feel. They carry a kind of stillness, a quiet strength that feels like standing before a mountain, unshaken, unmoved. 3 simple moments, but each one points to a powerful truth. Most of our suffering doesn't come from the world, it comes from how we react to it. When we react out of habit, we become prisoners of our emotions. But when we pause and observe instead, we begin to reclaim our freedom. So today, let's explore that path together, the one where silence becomes strength, where observation replaces reaction, and where letting go leads to inner peace. 1. Stillness is the ground of right action. There was a late afternoon once, at a quiet monastery tucked in the hills. The sun was slanting behind the mountains, casting golden shadows across the stone courtyard. A man in his 50s walked in slowly, his face looked worn. He sat down across from the monk and said nothing for a while, just sighed. Then he whispered, "I'm someone who loses my temper easily, but I don't want to be that kind of person. I just don't know how to stop once the emotions take over." That's not an uncommon story. In fact, maybe at some point, you've said the same thing. There's a strange paradox in modern life. We live in a world that never stops moving, always reacting, always doing, but rarely pausing to ask why we do what we do. Someone offends us, we snap back. Something doesn't go our way, we sulk. We get misunderstood, we rush to defend ourselves. We think reacting fast means we're strong. But is that really true? If you've ever noticed, people with real inner strength are not quick to respond. They don't speak just to fill silence. They don't act just to do something. They wait. They breathe. They observe. And when they do speak, each word has weight. When they do act, every move has meaning. Stillness is not weakness. It's where true action begins. The Buddha once said in the Samyutta Nikaya, "Like a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame." Most of our actions are driven by fear, anger, habit, or a need for control. But actions from that place wear us down. Only actions born from stillness, from a mind that's been trained, from clarity, are truly right actions. Not because they're fast, but because they're deep. They don't cause harm. They don't need to be undone. There's an old Zen story about a monk who spent years just learning one thing: how to sit and not get swept away by the first thought that arose. At first, it was maddening. His mind felt like monkeys bouncing around. But over time, with each breath, each day, he learned to simply watch emotions come and go, like waves lapping at the shore, without dragging him out to sea. When anger rose, he didn't push it away. He didn't chase it either. He just observed. And because of that, he stopped reacting. He only acted when necessary, and his actions always felt steady and full. That's the wisdom of stillness. In our world today, people aren't burning out because they're doing too much. They're burning out because they're reacting to too much. One careless email ruins your whole day. One judgmental comment keeps you up all night. One sideways glance makes you question your worth. We're pulled in every direction because we haven't yet looked deeply within. But if you can just pause before speaking, before sending that reply, before jumping to defend yourself, what you say and do afterward can change everything. Stillness is the space between stimulus and response. And that space is where your freedom lives. When you sit in a meditation hall, or even just in the early morning with no phone buzzing, and you let the noise drop away, you might notice something surprising. That silence inside you? It's not emptiness. It's a deep, untouched calmness. And from that space, your words, your actions, your choices, they begin to carry a different energy. Not reaction, but intention. Not habit, but clarity. Sometimes the right action is no action. It's waiting. It's looking again. It's stepping back to see the whole picture. A monk once told his impatient student, "When you feel anger, don't act. When you feel peace, still don't act. Only when your heart is calm and you no longer need to win then, act. That's when your action will be true." It's not easy, but it leads to a life with fewer regrets. Because when you respond from stillness, you don't hurt people. You don't make things worse. You don't say things you wish you could take back. Stillness doesn't make you smaller. It makes you stronger. When others fall apart, you hold steady. When others feel lost, you become a place of safety. And when you finally speak, the world listens, because you don't speak lightly. No one is born still. Stillness is forged through practice, failure, reflection. The mind is like a sword. If it's not tempered in the fire of silence, it stays dull. But every day, if you spend just 10 minutes sitting quietly, stepping away from noise, from social media, from old patterns, you are sharpening that sword. You are learning to act from awareness, not from impulse. A friend once asked me, "Why do I feel this urge to say something or do something the moment I feel offended?" I asked, "If someone throws a ball at your face, your instinct is to block it, right? But if someone throws words, why catch them with your heart?" Stillness gives you distance, and that distance is where you can choose your response rather than be controlled by it. When you live from observation, from the ground of stillness, you don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to win arguments to feel worthy. You don't need to act just to defend your ego. You only act when it's clear. And your actions, they carry weight, meaning compassion. 2. The one who observes, that's the real you. There's something most of us were never taught growing up, but it's one of the most important truths we can discover on the path of life. You are not your emotions. Sadness, anger, joy, frustration, anxiety, we all experience them. But most people grow up believing, "I'm angry. I'm an anxious person. I'm just not good enough." And over time, we carry those emotions as if they define who we are. But what if you paused and asked yourself, who is it that's watching these emotions? It's a simple question, but if you go deep enough, it can lead you straight to inner freedom. Imagine your mind as a vast open sky, and every emotion is just a cloud drifting across it. Some are fluffy and light, others heavy and dark. Some days there's a storm thunder, lightning, fierce winds. But no matter what kind of clouds appear, the sky itself remains untouched. No cloud ever damages the blue sky. In the same way, no emotion, no matter how intense, can truly harm your true nature. Not if you remember. You are not the anger. You are not the fear. You are the one watching it all unfold. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha taught a powerful reflection. Whatever is felt is not mine, not who I am, not myself. From that teaching, he gently guided his followers to observe feelings rather than identify with them. There was a woman who once came to a meditation center and shared her struggle. Every time I argue with my husband, I lose control. I scream. I cry. And afterward, I hate myself for it. I feel weak, broken. But the truth is, that version of her, the one who lost control, wasn't all of who she was. It was just a passing emotional storm, a cloud. The problem was, she mistook the cloud for the entire sky. By thinking, I'm a terrible person because I got angry, she allowed a passing smoke to cover her clear sky within. But the observer inside that part never judges. It doesn't cling. It doesn't drown. It simply sees, gently, clearly. Oh, anger is rising. And the moment you can see your emotion, you are no longer inside it. You've created a space, a small but powerful gap between yourself and the emotion. And in that space, there is freedom. And from freedom comes the ability to choose. A choice that's very different from your usual automatic reaction. The moment you choose not to be the anger, but to see the anger, that's when you begin walking the path of inner strength, of self-mastery, of awakening. Think of wise monks, or even older folks who've weathered many storms in life. They can sit in silence while being criticized. They can smile when misunderstood. Not because they don't feel, but because they don't let emotions rule them. They are the sky, not the cloud. And the truth is, you have that same part in you. It's never left you. We just forget it's there. One old monk once shared that during his first year at the monastery, a younger monk constantly tried to provoke him, hid his belongings, mocked him, interrupted his meditation. Everyone expected the elder to lash out or give up, but he never reacted. At the end of the year, the young monk finally asked, "Don't you see I've been testing you?" The elder smiled. "Of course I see, but I just observe. Emotions may visit, but I don't have to invite them to stay." Such a simple sentence, but within it, an entire art of living. We don't have to chase away emotions. We don't have to force ourselves to never get angry or always be positive. That just creates more tension. What we do need is the ability to see emotions come and go without becoming them. Some might ask, but how do I do that when the emotion feels so strong? And the answer lies in something so simple, yet so rarely practiced long enough to see its power. Pause and breathe. Just one mindful breath, anchoring your awareness back to your body, brings you back to the observer. One conscious breath can stop anger from exploding. It can soothe sadness before it takes over your heart. Breathe and watch. Don't chase. Don't judge. Just notice. And within that noticing lies wisdom. There's an old Zen saying, "The moon doesn't reflect on turbulent water, but when the lake is still, the moon appears." Likewise, when your mind is stirred up by emotions, the inner observer gets clouded. But when you settle, your clear, vast, original nature begins to shine through. People often think mastering emotions is about suppressing or erasing them, but really it's about no longer confusing yourself with them. The sky remains the sky, whether it's stormy or sunny. And you remain you even on days when you feel sad or angry or afraid. As long as you can say, "I'm feeling this," instead of "I am this," you're still free. And that kind of freedom isn't about escaping life. It's about being fully awake in life, in every relationship, in every moment, in every emotion. And that truly is the heart of Buddhist practice. Not to become emotionless, but to become fully present, clear, and free. 3. Real strength doesn't need to prove itself. One day, during a group session at the monastery, a young man asked me, "Teacher, why is it that in life, people who talk loud, react fast, and always assert themselves are seen as strong, and the quiet ones, they're often seen as weak?" The question hung in the quiet air for a while. Then an elder monk responded with a story. He said that long ago, there was a fierce warrior named Angulimala known for his brutality. He had killed hundreds of people and even wore a necklace made of their fingers. One day, he heard that a spiritual teacher named Gautama was passing through the forest where he hid. Driven by pride and the hunger to challenge, Angulimala charged forward like he always did to prove his strength. But what happened that day changed his life. No matter how fast he ran, this teacher, the Buddha, simply walked calmly. And oddly enough, the more Angulimala chased, the farther away he seemed. Finally, Angulimala shouted, "Monk, stop!" The Buddha turned, looked at him gently, and said, "I have already stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." That one sentence, not a threat, not a defense, pierced through the armor of a man drenched in blood. It didn't need to prove anything. It didn't need to be loud, because it came from a place of total inner stillness. True strength has never needed to shout. If you listen closely to life, you'll notice people with deep inner strength don't compete for attention in a room. They don't need to raise their voice to be heard, because they know when what you say comes from clarity and truth, it carries its own power. On the other hand, the more insecure someone is, the louder they get. The more afraid someone is of being overlooked, the more they talk. The less control someone has, the quicker they react emotionally. There's something fascinating about this noisy world. Stillness stands out, not because it's mute, but because it comes from a heart that no longer needs to prove itself, be seen, or be validated. And that alone makes it magnetic. You see this in everyday life. Say you're in an argument, and the other person starts pushing hard, louder voice, dominating tone, trying to win. Your first instinct? Defend yourself. Prove your point. Push back. But have you ever noticed, if you just pause, take a step back, and choose not to respond, that doesn't mean you lost. It means you didn't need to win to feel enough. Inner strength doesn't come from defeating others. It comes from not needing to win at all. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, conquering others with force does not make you victorious. The true hero is the one who conquers themselves. When someone can master their reactions, they might not seem impressive at first glance. But over time, that steadiness, that trustworthiness, that calm energy earns deep respect. Because deep down, we all know, those who get angry easily are usually the weakest. Those who react fast lose control faster. But those who stay calm in the storm, that takes something far beyond muscle. It takes a deep heart. A woman in her 50s once shared during a meditation retreat, "I used to think I was strong because I never let anyone disrespect me. If someone crossed a line, I snapped. If someone was wrong, I corrected them. But over time, I realized I did all that because I was afraid of being dismissed, afraid of being small. And anything that needs constant proving probably isn't that solid yet." And that's the lesson many people come to after years of living, working, and getting knocked around by life. True strength isn't about being admired. It's about not needing admiration and still feeling at peace. Silent people aren't quiet because they don't know how to speak or act. They're quiet because they know when to speak and when not to. They don't react not because they're numb, but because they refuse to be ruled by emotion. They don't raise their voice because their presence speaks louder than sound. Real inner power doesn't make noise, but its echo can reach across the world. In the Buddhist tradition, we often see the image of a monk meditating deep in the mountains, not to escape life, but to forge a quiet strength, the strength to remain unmoved by praise or blame, the strength to not follow what's wrong, the strength to stay steady in the middle of chaos. And when someone has that strength, they don't have to prove a thing. Their presence is the proof. You'll see this even in modern life. The best leaders, they're not the ones barking orders. They're the ones who carry such calm that others want to listen. The most mindful parents, they don't scare their kids with yelling. They guide with a look, a tone, a presence that feels safe. And the one thing they all have in common? Self-control. And that self-control starts with not letting emotions run the show. That doesn't come from luck. It comes from practice, from observation, from patience. And slowly, day by day, situation by situation, you begin to transform. You don't need to yell anymore. You don't need to be right anymore. You don't need to react anymore. Not because you don't care, but because you're peaceful enough not to need any of it. True strength has never been about loudness. It's the deep stillness of someone who knows themselves so well, they no longer need anyone else to confirm it. No one can truly hurt you unless you let them. A woman once sat across from me, her eyes clouded with exhaustion after many sleepless nights. She shared, "My husband just left me. After 15 years together. I know I need to be strong. I know I have to let go. But still, every word he says, it cuts right through me. I don't understand why I let myself get hurt this way." She's not alone. All of us, at some point in our lives, have felt pain because of someone else, a harsh word, a cold silence, a sudden turn of the back, or simply because they didn't respond the way we hoped they would. And so we say, "They hurt me." But the truth is, they only touched a part of us that was already clinging. Clinging to the belief, this person will never leave me. Clinging to the idea, I need to be acknowledged. Clinging to the fantasy, life should unfold the way I planned it. And it's these attachments, not their actions, that cause us pain. It's not what others do. It's how tightly we grip our expectations around them. The Buddha said it clearly in the Samyutta Nikaya. No one can harm someone who does not cling. Sounds simple, but to live it takes deep awareness. There was a story of a monk who was meditating in the forest when a thief came out and threatened him with a knife. Yet the monk remained calm. Frustrated, the thief shouted, "Aren't you afraid of me?" And the monk replied, "Number, you can only steal what I'm holding, but I hold nothing." That answer wasn't just brave, it was deeply true. Someone who doesn't cling can't be robbed. Someone who doesn't hold on can't be broken. In daily life, this plays out in small but powerful ways. Someone ignores us. Someone speaks against us. And we say, "They hurt me." But look closely. Did their words really hurt? Or did their words hit a part of us that's silently screaming, "See me, love me, agree with me"? Pain doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the collision between reality and our expectation. And if there's no expectation, there's nothing to be disappointed. This doesn't mean we should stop loving or caring. In fact, it's the opposite. We still love, we still show up, we still give our best, but we no longer tie our worth to someone else's response. Letting go doesn't mean walking away. It means staying without being shackled. It means being present, kind, and loving, but not letting someone else control our peace of mind. Another woman once shared with me, "My ex said some awful things to me. I carried those words like scars for years. I felt worthless because of what he said." Then I asked her, "Are you really going to let someone who's no longer in your life continue to control your emotions every day just because you believed something he said?" She sat in silence, and then tears came. Sometimes that's all it takes, to look directly at what we're clinging to and ask, how much longer do I want to hold this? In Buddhism, this is called upadana attachment, or grasping. And as long as we grasp, we suffer. A rope that isn't tied to anything can't be pulled by the wind. But the rope that's knotted to a post, even a slight breeze will make it sway. The same is true of our mind. If we're tied to reputation, image, promises, relationships, then even the smallest shift can shake our whole inner world. But if we learn to let things come and let them go as they naturally do, then nothing can truly hurt us. Letting go doesn't erase who we are. It returns us to who we really are, unshaped by outside opinions. Someone once asked, "But what if they insult me, shame me? How do I not feel hurt?" And the answer is, you're not hurt by their words. You're hurt because you believe their words, or because you're clinging so tightly to how you see yourself that their words hit that image and you flinch. It's like a wound on your skin. If your skin is healthy, even a touch means nothing. But if there's a cut, even a soft touch stings. So, really, the person who hurt you just touched something inside that hasn't healed. And you have a choice: to blame them or to begin healing. Once you understand this, you reclaim your power. Because no one out there has the key to your suffering unless you hand it to them. That kind of freedom, it's not detachment. It's a heart so wide it can love without being owned. There's a Zen saying, "Let everything pass like the wind. The wind holds on to nothing and leaves no trace." To live like this isn't to be cold or indifferent. It's to live with emotions, but not be trapped by them. And then, one day, a cruel word no longer steals your sleep. A cold stare no longer makes you question your worth. A closed door no longer makes you feel like your life is falling apart. Because you've stopped clinging. Because you've learned to live without holding. 5. Not every argument is worth stepping into. One afternoon, in the quiet backyard of a monastery, as the first autumn leaves began to fall on the damp earth, a middle-aged man came to see the abbot. His face was tense. He had just walked out of a heated meeting with his colleagues, full of conflict, raised voices, and emotions running wild. He said, "I know I shouldn't have gotten so angry. It wasn't worth it. But in that moment, I couldn't hold back. I had to speak up. I had to let them know I was right." The teacher didn't argue. He didn't agree either. He simply smiled gently and asked, "After that argument, do you feel lighter or more tired?" The man lowered his head. "I'm exhausted." And honestly, no one changed their opinion anyway. The teacher didn't say another word. He just poured tea. And in that silence, the man began to understand. Not all arguments are bad, but most don't arise from a true desire to understand each other. They're born out of the need to win. And when the ego leads the way, conversation becomes combat, and nobody truly wins. There's a well-known teaching from the Buddha that becomes more real the more we live through it. Words are like arrows once released. They cannot be taken back. In arguments, most of the arrows we fire come from anger. They don't aim at truth. They aim to hurt. Have you ever looked back at an argument you had and asked yourself, was that really necessary? Did anything good actually come from it? Did we understand each other better or just grow more distant, more silent, more regretful? The wise don't avoid difficult conversations, but they only step in when the purpose is to understand, not to win. They know that sometimes silence is the highest form of wisdom, especially when words stop being bridges and start becoming walls. There was once a practitioner who said that in his early years of spiritual training, he was constantly triggered by people who challenged or misrepresented him, especially when someone twisted the truth. He felt the urge to jump in, to defend himself, to set the record straight. Until one day, after a long debate with a fellow monk, he sat down to meditate and realized something simple yet profound. I wasn't really reacting to the falsehood. I was reacting to the pain of being misunderstood. From that moment, everything shifted. He didn't give up truth. He gave up the need to always prove he was right. Because some things don't need to be said. Some misunderstandings don't need to be corrected. And some people, they don't listen with their ears, but only with the rigid filters of their own beliefs. Trying to argue in those moments is like speaking to a door that's already closed. In Buddhism, this is known as vitanda, useless debate. Conversations that drain energy without creating understanding. Arguments not born from sincerity, but from the need to defend the ego. And the wise, they see it, and they don't enter. There's a well-loved Zen story that many people remember. A Zen master was once invited to give a talk at a village gathering. As he spoke, a man from the crowd stood up and began shouting insults, mocking the master and the teachings. The whole hall went quiet. Everyone waited to see how the master would respond, but he simply smiled and remained silent. Later, someone asked him, "Didn't you feel offended?" He replied, "If someone gives you a gift and you don't accept it, who does it belong to?" The person answered, "To the one who gave it." The master said, "Exactly. So if someone offers me anger, insults, or criticism, and I don't take it, why would I carry it with me?" That story is simple, yet powerful, because it reminds us, you don't have to react just to prove your worth. Your value isn't found in your words, but in your ability to stay centered while others lose theirs. The truth is, no one can attack your mind unless you open the door and invite them in. A friend once told me that after she stopped arguing with people on social media to defend her opinion, she felt so much lighter. Not because she no longer had beliefs, but because she no longer needed others to agree with them. She said, "I realized no one gets convinced in an argument. People only change when they're ready, and I no longer need to play the role of the persuader." That's the truth. Reaction only creates more reaction. Fire meets fire, everything burns. But fire meets water, and the flames settle. The wise choose to be the water, not because they're weak, but because they've mastered the art of calm strength. So when someone offends you, you don't need to respond. When someone disagrees with you, you don't need to fix them. When you're misunderstood, you don't need to prove anything. Because if your heart is steady, time will speak for you. And if it isn't, then even the most well-argued defense will leave you tired. The question isn't, who's right? The real question is this battle worth your peace? 6. Silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom. There's something strange about the world today. Everyone wants to speak, but very few truly want to listen. Everyone has something to share, something to prove, something to defend. But hardly anyone chooses silence, not because they don't know what to say, but because they're afraid. Afraid that if they stay silent, they'll be seen as weak. And yet, within silence lies a kind of wisdom deeper than 1,000 words. One afternoon, during a meditation retreat, as the hall sat quietly in stillness, a young man opened his eyes and leaned over to whisper to his friend, "What's the point of just sitting here? We're not even doing anything." The friend didn't reply. But after the session, the teacher gently said, "Do you know, only when the lake is still can the moon be seen clearly? Only when your mind is calm can you see what others miss." At first, it sounds like just a poetic metaphor, but if you sit with it long enough, you'll realize it holds one of the deepest truths in both meditation and life. Because when the noise stops, you finally begin to hear what's always been buried beneath it. And when you stop reacting, you finally start to see. In Buddhist texts, the Buddha is often called Muni, the silent one, not because he never spoke, but because every word he did speak came from a place untouched by ego, untouched by emotion, untouched by the need to be heard. There were times when he simply stayed silent in the face of challenging, philosophical questions, not to avoid answering, but because he knew the person asking wasn't ready to understand. His silence became a mirror. Only when the heart of the questioner opened could the answer truly enter. In everyday life, there are countless moments when we feel the urge to speak up. A rude comment, a misunderstanding, someone saying something completely untrue about us, an argument where everyone is trying to be right. But if you're calm enough to choose silence, you'll begin to notice what others miss. For example, when someone criticizes you harshly, if you stay quiet instead of reacting, you might begin to see the pain behind their words. Sometimes, it's not even about you. They might be hurting from something else entirely, and you just happen to be the one standing in the path of that pain. But if you speak up, if you retaliate, the truth gets buried beneath the noise of the back and forth. Silence, when paired with mindfulness, is not passivity. It's a deep form of listening, not just to others, but to yourself. Because in that stillness, you begin to notice your own inner reactions. You feel the irritation rise. You notice the urge to defend. You feel the need to say something clever or cutting. But the moment you see those reactions, they stop controlling you. One practitioner once shared that during family meals where political and social debates often erupted, she chose to stay silent. Someone asked her, "Why don't you say anything? Are you afraid to speak up?" She simply smiled and said, "I don't feel the need to speak because everyone's talking to be right, not to be understood." It may sound cold, but actually, it's incredibly clear-minded. Sometimes, silence is a gift to the person who's shouting, because only when no one responds do they start to hear their own voice. Only when no one pushes back do they start to feel the emptiness in what they're saying. The Buddha once said, "One who is not shaken by praise or blame, who remains steady like a rock in the wind, that person is truly wise." That kind of steadiness is not some far-off ideal. It's very real when we learn to use silence as a form of mastery, not suppression. The difference is in the attitude. Someone who stays quiet because they don't know what to say may just bottle up frustration, but someone who chooses silence is someone doing deep inner work. They're using silence as a space to check in with themselves, to ask, what's actually rising in me right now? What is the wisest response here? Is speaking helpful, or would silence serve better? And in most emotionally charged moments, silence is the better choice. There was a Q&A session once where someone asked a long question full of sarcasm, jabs, and passive aggression. After they finished, the old monk simply replied, "You've spoken a lot. Now, sit quietly and listen to what you just missed." Nobody understood what he meant, at least not right away. But days later, that person returned and said, "I sat with myself and realized what I truly wanted to ask wasn't even what I said out loud." Silence helps you listen beneath the noise, to the deeper layers of your own mind, to the truth behind the emotions, to the stillness where no argument is needed and no defense is required. In that space, you discover truth as it is, not as we wish it to be. So no, silence isn't weakness. It's not a lack of confidence. It's not avoidance. It's a sign of maturity. The deeper a person is, the fewer words they waste. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they've seen how most words come from habit, not from clarity. The wise don't speak to win. They speak when their words bring peace. And when their words don't bring peace, they choose silence. 7. Stillness doesn't mean inaction. Sometimes, when you're standing in a room full of noise, full of opinions, accusations, or misunderstandings, you feel the urge to say something, to defend yourself, to explain, to speak up, almost like a reflex. Because silence, in our everyday world, is often misunderstood as weakness, as defeat, or worse, as ignorance. But here's the truth. Staying silent doesn't mean you don't understand. And choosing not to respond doesn't mean you have nothing to say. In fact, often, the one who knows the most is the one who waits. Because they understand something deeper. It's not about reacting right away. It's about acting at the right time. And that's where wisdom lives. In the Buddhist scriptures, there's a teaching the Buddha once gave to young monks who were eager to go out and spread the Dharma right after ordination. He said, "Not every wind calls for a sail. Not every opportunity needs action. One must understand timing, conditions, and sufficiency." It sounds simple, but in practice, it's a real challenge. Because most of us aren't used to waiting. We're used to reacting. Reacting when insulted. Reacting when something feels unfair. Reacting when we're misunderstood. Explaining, correcting, defending right away. But the truth is, most of that behavior doesn't come from wisdom. It comes from emotions we haven't yet fully seen. So the real question becomes, can you wait without avoiding? Can you step back without being stepped on? Can you stay silent and still hold your ground? The answer is yes, but only if you've cultivated true stillness within. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing or just sitting still. Stillness is a state of mind. It's the ability to stay rooted inside while the world outside keeps spinning. And from that inner steadiness, you begin to see clearly what needs doing and what doesn't. What should be said now and what can wait. What deserves your energy and what time itself will resolve. There's an old story about a Japanese Zen master who lived during a time of war. One day, soldiers came to the monastery, demanding food. The young student next to the master was visibly agitated. He whispered, "Master, they're being so disrespectful. Why don't you fight back?" The master calmly replied, "I've never seen a wind that lasts forever. Every storm must pass, and afterward, the earth will know what to do." A few days later, the soldiers left. No confrontation, no damage, just a wave that passed. And the student, for the first time, understood. Not reacting doesn't mean you're doing nothing. Sometimes, the wisest action is to wait for clarity. In today's fast-paced world, we're constantly told to do something. Act fast, fix it, respond. But sometimes, wisdom lies in a single deep breath. In the ability to step back, not out of fear, but out of insight. A woman once shared that she quickly replied to a message she should have waited until morning to answer. She wanted to be clear, decisive, to not leave things hanging. But in her rush, she damaged a relationship that only needed a little quiet to heal. She said, "If I had just waited a few hours, I wouldn't have lost that person. Because what I really lost was the wiser part of myself pushed aside by my emotions." Stillness teaches us this. The right action often doesn't come from deciding, but from seeing clearly. And that kind of clarity doesn't arise when the mind is restless. It comes when we stop, when we breathe, when we look deeply into what's unfolding, without judgment, without jumping to fix, without rushing to conclusions. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "The impulsive person cannot walk the path of truth, but the one who waits, who examines, who moves with care, walks the path, like the earth holds water, like a great tree reaching slowly toward the sun." One student asked his Zen teacher, "Master, when should I take action?" And the teacher replied, "When your actions are no longer driven by fear, anger, or the need to prove something. That is the key. When you act at the right moment, you're not just more effective. You're acting from a grounded place. You're not pulled by the moment. You're not wasting energy on reaction. You're not scrambling later to undo what you did in haste. Action from stillness is action with depth. It's quiet but powerful. It's subtle but lasting, because it doesn't come from ego, it comes from awareness. So if you're standing at a crossroads, pause. If you're feeling provoked, breathe before you speak. If you're about to do something, just to relieve tension, ask yourself, what's driving me right now? If the answer is, I'm afraid of being disrespected, I need to save face, I want to prove I'm right, then maybe it's not the right time to act. But when your heart has settled, when you see clearly what matters and what doesn't, when there's no need to protect your image, only the quiet wish to do what's right, that's when you act. And that's the kind of action that carries the energy of peace. 8. Peace doesn't come from controlling the outside, but from letting go inside. One Sunday morning, during an outdoor meditation session, a middle-aged man spoke up in a deep, quiet voice. "I've spent my whole life trying to keep things stable, my job, my family, my finances, and yet I still don't feel at peace. Even though things are going well on the outside, something inside still feels unsettled." That man isn't alone in feeling that way. In fact, many people, maybe even you, have felt it too. When we're young, we often believe that if we could just control everything, we'd finally be at peace. If our partner always understood us, if our coworkers were always kind, if our parents stopped criticizing, if our kids listened, if the world just calmed down, then maybe we'd be able to breathe. And so, we spend years trying to fix things, trying to persuade, adjust, explain, shape the world to match our hopes. But the more we try, the more exhausted we become. Because at some point, we realize something painful. The world was never meant to obey our script. No matter how carefully we plan, some things just won't go our way. No matter how deeply we love, some people will still walk away, or change, or let us down. And no matter how hard we try to prevent it, life will still throw us curveballs that shake everything up. And so, we start to see, inner peace isn't about everything going our way. It's about letting go of the need for things to always go our way. The Buddha once said, "Nothing is permanent. All things are subject to change, and nothing truly belongs to us." At first, that might sound sad, but actually, it's liberating. Because when you really understand that you don't own this life, you don't own people, you don't own the outcome, you can finally stop gripping so tightly. You can stop living in fear of losing what was never yours to keep. There's a woman who once shared a story that silenced the entire room. She said, "For 20 years, I tried to make my mother happy. I followed her expectations, chose the career she wanted, married the man she approved of. And then one day, she still said, 'I don't know why you turned out this way.'" She paused. "I wasn't hurt. I was clear. I finally saw that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't control how someone else sees me." She smiled softly. "Since that day, I've been learning to let go. not of my mother, but of the need to control how she loves me. And that's where my peace began. That story speaks to something many of us feel. We think peace will come when others understand us, love us, agree with us. But if we live that way, our sense of peace will always be hanging on someone else. It's like a kite. It looks free in the sky, but it only flies because it's still tied to a string. And if the one holding that string pulls, or lets go, or changes direction, the kite loses its path immediately. Our minds are the same. If our inner calm depends on other people's behavior or how things turn out, we'll constantly be tossed around by things we can't control. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is clinging the tight grip we have on what we want, clinging to someone loving us, clinging to stability in work, clinging to a future that fits our vision. And when those things don't happen, we feel empty, panicked, lost. But here's the beautiful part. The moment you let go, just a little peace begins to flow in. Not because you gave up in despair, but because you saw clearly. Trying to force the world to match your expectations only leads to disappointment. But every time you release a little bit of that pressure, you feel lighter. Someone once asked Ajahn Chah, the great time meditation master, "Master, how can I be at peace when I don't know what the future holds?" He answered, "You don't know the future. That much is certain. So stop demanding certainty. Instead of fearing what's unknown, start fully living what's here." That's what meditators practice every day. Not to control life, but to recognize the urge to control and gently smile at it. And then let go. An old man from California once came to the temple and shared that after retiring, he felt lost. He said, "I don't control anything anymore. No one needs my input. I feel useless." But after several sessions of meditation, he realized, "I've never really been at peace because I always needed someone to need me. And when no one did, I panicked. But now I've learned how to sit quietly, do nothing, help no one, and still feel whole." He laughed, his eyes sparkling like a child's. "I don't need to control anymore." And that is freedom. Peace of mind doesn't come from having everyone like you, or having the perfect job, flawless health, or financial security. Peace comes when you can accept that maybe no one fully understands you. Maybe some things won't work out. Maybe a few doors will close. And yet, you're still okay. Because you're no longer trying to bend life to fit your shape. You're flowing with it like a river winding around rocks, instead of trying to push them aside. And in that surrender, there is quiet power. And in that space, peace finally finds a home. 9. You are the gatekeeper of your attention. One early morning, during a mountain meditation retreat in Northern California, a young man sat across from me looking drained. When asked how he was doing, he said quietly, "It's not that I'm doing too much. I just always feel like I'm running on empty, like I'm living every day with a leaking mind." And honestly, that's how many people feel these days. Not because they're doing too many things, but because their minds aren't fully in anything. The mind is like a lamp, but when the light is scattered, some on the phone screen, some on the news, some on what someone said, some on an old memory, it has no strength left to illuminate the present. There's a saying from the old days, "When the mind isn't anchored, the body cannot rest." In Buddhist teachings, attention, or sati in Pali, is considered the very first breath of mindfulness. And when attention is lost, the mind falls into delusion. It's like a gatekeeper who has fallen asleep. Anyone can slip into your house. Thieves, snakes, tricksters, even toxic winds. The same goes for our mind. When we're unaware of where our attention is going, anything and anyone can steal our life energy. There's a story in the sutras about a student who came to an old master and said, "Master, I meditate every day, but I still feel overwhelmed. My mind keeps getting pulled away. I can't stay grounded, the master asked. How do you start your mornings? The student replied, I usually check the news on my phone. The master smiled and said, You're handing the keys to your mind over to the world. No wonder everyone's walking in and out freely. We live in an era where everything demands your attention the moment you open your eyes. Notifications, headlines, social media, emails, conversations you don't even need to be part of. And without mindfulness, you'll spend the entire day just reacting instead of living intentionally. A meditation teacher once said, The cost of a distracted mind is a life that slips by unnoticed. You might be sitting next to your child, but your mind is thinking about an email. You might be having dinner, but your eyes are glued to a screen. You might be in a conversation, but your mind is busy crafting a reply, not truly listening. Each time that happens, you lose a little piece of your connection to the now. And over time, life starts to feel hollow not because it's lacking, but because you weren't really there for it. Attention isn't just about looking at something. It's a sacred kind of energy. Where your attention goes, life grows. Focus on something hopeful, you grow hope. Focus on fear, you feed anxiety. Focus on your inner critic, you make it louder. Focus on the present moment, you give life a chance to feel whole again. That's why attention needs to be protected like the gate to your spiritual home. A wise person knows where their mind is. They know when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to open up and when to withdraw, when to respond and when to just smile in silence. Because sometimes what exhausts you isn't the work itself. It's the mental tug of war with things that aren't worth your energy. A middle-aged woman once shared with me, I don't know why, but every time I read negative comments online, I get upset. Even if the person doesn't know me, I'll spend the whole afternoon stewing. I even think about it while I'm eating. Then she smiled sadly and said, They don't even know I exist, but somehow they can still control my emotions with just a few words. That might seem like a small thing, but it's actually what many people are living every day. We're in an age where almost anyone can affect our inner state if we're not mindful of where our attention goes. The Buddha taught, A mind without mastery is like an untrained horse. It runs wild in any direction, dragging you into ditches or straight off a cliff. Practicing the Dharma doesn't mean you need to know everything, fix everything, or respond to every voice. It means you know what's pulling your mind and whether it truly deserves your energy. One of the most powerful ways to preserve your inner strength is to reserve your attention only for what nourishes you. So ask yourself each morning, what am I going to offer my attention to today? Who will I allow into the gates of my inner home? How much time will I spend in silence rather than being dragged around by noise? And you'll start to notice you don't need to know everything going on out there. You just need to know what's going on in here. When your attention returns to its rightful place, your strength returns with it. Not because you became stronger, but because you stopped leaking. You no longer waste energy on meaningless, draining distractions. You can move slower and still live deeply. You can say less and still be heard. You can do less and still feel whole. Because wherever your whole mind is present, that's where real life begins. 10. Anger doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the wounds inside. Have you ever found yourself suddenly angry over something that seemed minor? Maybe someone said something that sounded harmless to others, but it sparked a storm of emotion in you. Irritation, hurt, even the urge to snap back. And later, when the anger subsided, you looked back and thought, why did I react that strongly? The truth is, most of the time, we're not angry because of what someone said. We're angry because it hit a wound in us that hasn't healed yet. It's like a bruise you forgot you had. Even a gentle touch can make it hurt. We often blame external reasons for our anger. They said something offensive. The situation was unfair. They hurt me. But look deeper, and you'll see not everyone reacts the same way to the same words. The same action might make one person furious and another person feel nothing at all. That tells us something important. The anger isn't outside, it's inside. A woman once came to our meditation center and shared this. "I hate it when someone calls me weak. It just flips a switch in me. I lose control." When I gently asked, "Why does that word upset you so much?" she went quiet for a moment and then began to cry. "Because as a child," she said, "I was always told I was useless, that I wasn't strong enough. And I promised myself I'd never let anyone say that to me again." In that moment, she realized her anger didn't come from what someone said today. It came from a pain she had never had the chance to hold with compassion. A single comment is just a spark. But if there's already a pile of dry straw inside your heart, that spark can turn into a fire. The Buddha once taught, "No one can hurt you unless there's something inside you that's still hurtable." At first, that teaching might feel shocking, even hard to accept. But sit with it, and it becomes clear. People can't make you angry unless there's already something inside that's waiting to be triggered. They can't hurt you unless that wound is still open. It's like a spotless mirror. Can you draw anything on it? Number. It reflects, but it doesn't retain. But if the mirror is already smudged with dust, even a fingerprint leaves a mark. So, anger isn't something to suppress. It's something to listen to. Every time you feel that fire rising inside, ask yourself, why is this bothering me so much? What is this moment trying to show me about what's still unhealed in me? A wise meditation master once said, "Anger is a bell not to shout with, but to wake up with." It points to a limiting belief, an old fear, or a part of you that's still waiting to be held with understanding. When seen through the lens of insight, anger isn't just a reaction, it becomes a doorway back to yourself. There's an old Buddhist story that goes like this. One day, a man hurled harsh, cruel words at the Buddha, but the Buddha sat quietly calm, unmoved. When the man finally stopped, the Buddha simply asked, "If someone offers you a gift, but you don't accept it, who does it belong to?" The man, confused, said, "Well, I guess it still belongs to the one who offered it." The Buddha smiled and replied, "I do not accept your words, so they remain with you." That response wasn't to win an argument. It was a gentle reminder. Every reaction is a choice. And when anger isn't met with mindfulness, it turns us into prisoners of our own emotion. You might think, "I can't help it. The anger just comes too fast." But maybe it's not about controlling the anger. Maybe it's about understanding where it's coming from. Because once you see the root, it stops controlling you. You stop reacting unconsciously and start responding with clarity. And here's something important. The person who made you angry isn't necessarily a bad person. They just touched something inside you that still needs healing. So the real work isn't to cut them off or shut them out. It's to turn inward and heal. There will come a day when that wound inside you is truly seen, held with compassion and understood deeply. And when that day comes, you'll no longer be so easily shaken by little things. Your heart will feel wider. People might still say unkind things, but you won't be pulled into it, because by then, you'll have discovered something precious. Your inner peace no longer depends on the outside world. 11. Comparison is the root of suffering, and jealousy isn't about them being better, it's about us losing ourselves. There's a kind of suffering that's quiet, familiar, and often hidden deep inside. It doesn't come with tears. You can't measure it in material terms, but it lingers. It gnaws at your peace, and it slowly erodes your sense of self. It's the pain that comes from comparison, and the emotion that often follows is jealousy. Maybe you've felt it before, even just for a fleeting moment. A friend your age just got promoted. A cousin just posted photos of their brand new house. Someone on social media shares a seemingly perfect, happy life. And suddenly, something stirs in your heart. Not genuine joy for them, but a quiet ache within yourself. But here's the truth. Jealousy doesn't actually come from someone else's success. It comes from measuring your worth by the scoreboard of more or less. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught, "One who envies cannot find peace, just as poisoned water cannot become pure." Jealousy is a subtle kind of poison. It doesn't make you scream or shout, but it slowly eats away at your self-worth. It makes you forget who you are, forget what path you're meant to walk. And that's when we start living to keep up with others, instead of living in alignment with ourselves. A man once shared after a meditation retreat, "I can't sleep whenever I see my old college friend post vacation pictures with his wife and kids, while I'm still stuck with debt and loneliness." When asked, "Do you actually want the life he has, or are you just using his life to question your own value?" he paused and then quietly admitted, "My jealousy isn't because I want what he has. It's because I feel less worthy for not having it." Now, comparison by itself isn't wrong. It's a natural function of the mind. The real issue is when we use someone else's ruler to measure ourselves. And when we do that, we lose something precious. The truth of who we are. A flower that doesn't bloom in spring isn't dying. Some lotuses wait for summer before they burst into full beauty. Just like the spiritual path, everyone blossoms in their own season. Comparing your timeline to someone else's journey only makes you forget where you are. The Buddha never compared himself to anyone. He saw clearly that every being has their own unique karma and conditions. He also taught, "One who knows contentment is truly rich. One who doesn't compare is truly at peace." During a teaching at the Jetavana forest, a young monk once asked, "Bhante, I see others more diligent than me, wiser than me, more respected than me. Why can't I be like them?" The Buddha pointed to a sala tree nearby, tall, with wide shade, and said, "Do you see this sala tree? It's tall, strong, and offers cool shade. But next to it, there's a tiny flowering bush, still blooming, still fragrant. People come to the tree for shade. Others come to the flower for scent. Each is beautiful because it is true to itself. Comparison only arises when we forget our unique role, our inner worth. If you're the moon, shine at night. If you're a candle, glow in someone's hand. You don't need to be big like others, just bright enough in your own corner of the sky. The person who knows when to stop comparing is already stepping into a quiet freedom. So look deeply. If you see someone with what you don't have, don't rush to blame yourself. Don't jump to jealousy. Instead, ask, what is my true value based on? If there were no one left to compare to, who would I be? The mind begins to quiet down when it no longer races anyone. And you begin to see everyone is walking their own path. Everyone is carrying their own unseen burdens. Someone else's success doesn't make you smaller. In fact, with the right view, it becomes an invitation to celebrate, to learn, to open the heart. One day, when you've truly returned to yourself, you'll stop measuring your life by money, fame, or how many people admire you. You'll measure it by how peaceful your breath feels, how sincere your actions are, and how grateful you are to simply be alive. And when you finally let go of that invisible race called comparison, you'll step into a very different place, the land of inner freedom. A place where someone else's light doesn't dim your own, where their joy doesn't become your sorrow, Because you finally see true worth doesn't come from being better than others. It comes from understanding and loving yourself. 12. Letting go doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger than ever. There's a strange paradox in the spiritual life, a truth that's often hard to accept. True strength doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting go. I know that might sound backwards, right? We grow up in a world that teaches us to try harder, hold tighter, conquer more, and control things so we won't lose. But then, somewhere along the road, when your heart feels tired, when your hands are full but your soul still feels empty, that's when you begin to understand not everything you hold on to is worth keeping, and not everything you let go of is truly lost. Someone once asked, "How do I know I'm getting stronger?" And the answer wasn't about muscles, not about status, not about beating anyone else. It was this: you're stronger when you can let go of what once haunted you without bitterness. Letting go isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's the act of someone wise and courageous. Because not everyone dares to release something they once poured their whole identity into. Their hopes, their ego, their entire sense of self. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Letting go is the path to peace. Whoever lets go of craving is truly free." And this craving isn't just about sensual pleasure. It's our clinging to expectations, to outcomes, to the image we've built of who we think we should be. Imagine a person climbing a mountain. They carry a heavy backpack filled with the need to prove themselves, relationships they think they must hold on to, dreams they've been told they have to chase. But the higher they go, the wind gets stronger, breathing gets harder, and that backpack makes every step more difficult. Eventually, they have to decide: keep carrying everything and collapse, or let go of what's no longer needed and move forward, lighter, steadier. Life is just like that. Letting go doesn't take something precious away. It gives you something far more valuable: freedom. A woman once came to the monastery. Her eyes were sad, though she tried to hide it. She said, "I can't forget him. We've been apart for years. I know he hurt me, but I still can't let go." When asked, "What are you holding on to? Love, memories, or unmet expectations?" she paused and whispered, "I'm holding on to the version of him I wished he'd become, and the disappointment that he didn't." And that's something many of us carry. We don't suffer from what happened. We suffer from what we hoped would happen, but didn't. We can't let go because we're clinging to a story that never came true. Letting go is realizing no one comes into this life to play a role we've written for them. Nothing unfolds exactly the way we planned. Accepting that is courage. Letting go of expectations is the first step to living truthfully in the now. There's an old Buddhist story. A young monk once asked his teacher, "Master, why do I always feel tired? I meditate, I follow the precepts, I try so hard, but still, I'm not at peace." The teacher smiled, handed him a teacup filled to the brim, and said, "Drink." The monk hesitated. "But master, it's already full. If I try to drink, it'll spill." And the master replied, "Exactly. You cannot pour peace into a heart already overflowing with expectations and attachments." That sentence, gentle as wind, hits like lightning. You can't receive peace if your heart is packed with demands for how life should be. The strong person isn't the one who controls everything around them. It's the one who can calmly say, "This no longer fits. I choose to release it. This person's path is no longer aligned with mine. I wish them well and walk on. This road no longer nourishes me. I return to center." Letting go isn't losing. Letting go is giving freedom back to what was never meant to be held. It's breaking the chains of the ego, that part of us, always trying to force, to own, to shape the world our way. And here's the strange beauty of it. When you let go, you're not empty. You're full of lightness, of clarity, of truth. It's like a hand that's been clenched too long. Only when you release can that hand receive something new. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to conquer the past. You only need to let go of what no longer feels true. And in that space, something beautiful begins to rise. The real you, not the you that clings, not the you burdened by yesterday, but the version that is free, still, and alive in the present. Step lightly, turn inward, let go. Letting go of one thing creates space, and in that space, peace can finally live. That's when you're truly strong. Not because you control everything, but because you no longer need to, and you're still at peace. 13. The problem isn't too big, you're just standing too close. Have you ever noticed? A perfectly fine car, one tiny scratch, and suddenly we're upset all day. An offhand comment, if we hold on to it long enough, it turns into a storm inside our mind. One small mistake repeated over and over in our head, enough to steal our sleep for nights. The truth is, most problems in life aren't as big as we think. They only become big because we stare at them too long. And the longer we stare, the more we magnify. The more we think, the more we imagine. And that tiny sadness becomes a heavy lump in the heart. That small moment turns into an emotional tragedy. It's like dropping a single drop of black ink on a white page. At first, it's just a dot. But if you keep staring at that dot, ignoring all the white space around it, eventually all you see is the stain, nothing else. Attention is a form of energy, and whatever you feed with your energy grows. In Buddhist teachings, there's a beautiful story from the Buddha's time. A man came to the Buddha and complained that his mind was always disturbed. Little things in daily life haunted him endlessly. The Buddha didn't reply right away. Instead, he handed the man a glass of water and dropped in a pinch of dirt. Then he asked, "If you stir this water, what do you see?" The man answered, "It gets cloudy. I can't see anything." The Buddha nodded. "And if you leave it alone, what happens?" The man was quiet. After a while, the dirt settled. The water became clear again. The Buddha smiled. "Your mind is the same. If you keep stirring, it stays cloudy. But if you stop poking, stop overthinking, it will settle. It will become clear." Sometimes, problems don't need fixing. They just need less attention, less analysis, less repetition, less drama added by our imagination. And over time, they shrink. They float away like bubbles in a stream. A woman once shared her story. She had been deeply hurt when a coworker spoke badly about her behind her back. At first, it was a short, simple story. But she replayed it over and over in her head. Why would they do that to me? Was I too honest? Should I have said something back? Each time she thought about it, the anger resurfaced. Each time she told the story, it got bigger, heavier. Eventually, she couldn't even remember what was originally said. All that remained was the weight of betrayal. The event was small, but it cast a giant shadow because she fixated on it. Our mind is like a screen. Whatever we project onto it becomes our entire world in that moment. And if we don't learn to shift our gaze, we get trapped in replaying scenes of pain, blame, or regret. That's why in mindfulness practice there's a powerful teaching. Don't focus on the problem. Focus on the breath. That's it. When the mind begins to spiral, sit down. Breathe deeply. Return to your breath. Each breath is a gentle reminder. I choose to return. I choose not to stir the mud. I choose to let the water settle. A mindful person doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "Why am I still holding on to this?" Because here's the truth. You have the power to shift your attention. And when you do, the problem stops being the center of your universe. Here's something interesting. As people mature, they speak less about what upsets them. Not because they don't notice, but because they understand. Blowing up a problem is the fastest way to become a victim. But letting go of your attention is how you reclaim your power. Think about it. A child might cry loudly over a dropped candy. But just moments later, if you call them over to play, they forget they ever cried. Adults, though, we can stay mad for months over a single text message. Not because the issue was big, but because we didn't know how to place our mind anywhere else. The Buddha once taught, "The mind is the root of all things." If the mind is at peace, the world is at peace. So next time your heart feels heavy, ask yourself, am I staring at something small through a magnifying glass? Am I inflating it with my undivided attention? This world will always have people who are unkind. It will always have imperfections. Things will go wrong, but that doesn't mean you have to carry it all in your mind. You get to choose what's worth holding on to and what deserves to pass like the wind. A Zen master once said, "Peace doesn't come from a life without problems. It comes from not letting those problems consume your whole mind." You can let someone pass by and keep walking, or you can turn around, analyze, replay, judge, and get stuck. That choice is always in your hands. And then one day, you'll realize the issue wasn't that serious. You just took it too seriously in your mind. Start training yourself to let go of attention from the things that don't nourish you. And little by little, your life will feel lighter. Not because others changed, but because you stopped locking yourself inside the small stuff. Now, let's take this even deeper. Because mindfulness isn't just awareness. It's a kind of invisible armor. A person living mindfully doesn't get wounded so easily. They know what they're feeling, and they choose how to respond with wisdom rather than react from habit. So in the next part, we'll explore why mindfulness is not just a technique, but a powerful way of living, anchored in strength, clarity, and freedom. 14. Mindfulness, the invisible armor that keeps you from breaking easily. There's something quite magical that many of us only realize after we've been through enough pain. It's not that the world is too harsh, it's that we've lived far too long without mindfulness. How many times has a single comment from someone thrown off your whole day? How many times has a glance, a tone, or a message left unread made your heart anxious? We react instantly like dry grass catching fire. We feel hurt not because something huge happened, but because we weren't aware of what was going on inside us. And when someone asks, "Why are you so angry?" the answer often is, "Because they insulted me, because they didn't respect me, because they made me feel small." But the deeper question is, why is it so easy for someone else to make you feel small? Could it be because you've been away from yourself for too long? In Buddhism, mindfulness isn't some complex meditation technique reserved for monks in the forest. Mindfulness is simply coming back to yourself, right here, right now. It means being aware of what you're thinking, feeling, and needing before anyone else decides it for you. The Buddha said, mindfulness is the only path to freedom from suffering. Not because mindfulness is magical, but because when you're mindful, you no longer live like someone hypnotized by the outside world. There's a small story, but a deep one, about a young monk walking with his older teacher. Someone in the village hurled insults at the elder monk, using harsh words. The young one flushed red, fists clenched. But the elder simply smiled and kept walking. Later, in a quiet place, the young monk asked, "Master, didn't you feel disrespected?" The old monk replied, "I noticed it, but I also noticed the emotions rising in me, and I chose not to let them steer me." Then he added gently, "You are not your emotions. Mindfulness is the boat that carries you through the storm without sinking. Mindfulness doesn't erase emotions. It creates a pause, a sacred gap where you can see that emotions are just visitors, and you are the host. If you don't invite them in, they'll leave." Someone once asked, "How do I live without getting hurt?" The answer isn't to avoid everyone who might hurt you. It's learning how to live among people without losing your inner peace. It's like driving on a rough road. You can't make the road smooth right away, but you can slow down, grip the wheel more steadily, and stay alert. That grip on the wheel, that's mindfulness. Now imagine living a whole day fully mindful. You wake up not reaching for your phone, but gently tuning into your breath. You drink tea not while scrolling news, but really savoring the aroma. You step outside, and when someone honks at you, you don't flare up. You pause, breathe, and say to yourself, "This is just a sound. I don't have to treat it like an attack." And when someone says something hurtful, you don't lash out. You step back inside your mind and ask, "What am I feeling right now? How do I want to respond in a way that honors the person I'm becoming?" That is mindfulness. Not avoidance, but conscious choice. Choosing words from wisdom, not impulse. Choosing groundedness, not reactivity. Here's the beautiful part. When you live mindfully, people can feel it. They sense a calm energy in you, someone not easily pulled into drama. They become more thoughtful around you, not because you're intimidating, but because your presence is steady, unshakable by petty things. And slowly, you find yourself less wounded. Not because the world got nicer, but because your mind no longer chases every meaningless disturbance. A mindful person doesn't need to armor up against life, because life isn't something to fight. It's something to see, to understand, to move through with awareness. You start to realize not every word needs a reaction. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every compliment needs to be clung to. You have the power to choose to stand still in your own calm center. Mindfulness is that invisible armor. It's not heavy like metal. It's not rigid like a soldier's gear. It's light like air, soft as a breeze, yet solid as a mountain. It doesn't stop life from happening, but it lets you walk through life without losing yourself. Breath is the foundation. If you're lost, breathe. If you're angry, breathe. If you're anxious, breathe. And in each mindful breath, you're no longer in the dark. You're living in the light of your own awareness. And then something profound happens. The most powerful response is no reaction at all. Just understanding and responding from that understanding. No matter how busy life gets, remember, you are the gatekeeper of your attention. Not the world, not anyone else. Just you with your awareness and your choices decide what enters your heart and what stays outside the door of your stillness. Because anger doesn't come from what others say. It comes from the unhealed beliefs inside you. Jealousy doesn't mean someone else is better. It means you're still measuring your worth by comparison. And expectations, if you cling too tightly, can become chains of suffering. So, remember, the more you let go, the stronger you become. The more mindful you are, the freer you become. And when you wear mindfulness as your armor, you won't be so easily wounded. You won't blow small things into storms. When you know how to pause, breathe, and return inward, you'll discover when the mind is at peace, the world is quiet too. If this message has touched something in you, please subscribe to Buddhism Seeds so we can keep growing seeds of awareness and compassion together. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone you love, and leave a comment below so we can continue to walk this path of healing and awakening together. Buddhism Seeds, where every small teaching can become a great light in your life.